Welcome to episode 78 of Rubbish Talk with me, Alistair Meldrum.
And me, Jane Bond.
And this week, myself and Jane are going to chat about recycling waste collections. So last week we talked all about bin collection systems. This week we're going to look at the different recycling collection services across Scotland, England and Wales. But before that, any news, Jane?
Of course, there's always news. It's just a question of whether we're talking about the Gulf or whether we're talking about waste. But anyway, we'll go on to waste. So, Zero Waste Scotland have just produced a report called Food for Thought. And there's lots of good stats in this one. I was going to say the good stats, but they're not good stats, if you know what I mean. Basically, what they're saying is £1.3 billion worth of food waste is thrown out from our homes every year, which that's a lot of money. £234 per person, with 40% being thrown away at an evening meal, which I kind of think, right, I'm looking in my bin and thinking, well, probably 40%, your evening meal is your main meal, isn't it? So you're going to have the most food thrown out at that point. But it does talk about the fact that there is 73% of waste is edible and meant for human consumption. So taking that, either people aren't eating, they're not eating all their food, in which case, why don't you cook a little bit less? Or they're looking at their food and thinking, I should have used that yesterday, and throwing it away. So, you just don't know. Okay, 40% being thrown away is quite a lot. 40% not being used in time. So, you've got when we used to do waste composition analysis studies, you would see potatoes, you would see bread, you would see crisp packets, you would see meat still in packets and all this sort of stuff, just being thrown away because people hadn't had a chance to use it. It does say 29% of this is cooking too much. But do you know what? You've got freezers. Hopefully you can shove things in your freezers and keep it, or eat it the next day.
When you think about it, Jane, that's quite a lot of money, £234 per person in Scotland.
Yeah, that is a lot of money.
That figure wasn't in the Zero Waste Scotland report. I took the population of Scotland's about 5.5 million, divided that up. So for a household of, I don't know, maybe two adults and a couple of kids, you're probably talking £600 or £700 per household a year. So almost £100 a month.
It's a lot of money just to throw away, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't just go up, spend £100 in Sainsbury's and then just throw it in the bin, would you? But that's basically what's happening.
But I think Zero Waste Scotland have introduced a food waste intervention plan. Have you read it yet?
No. The
I've
first of its kind that aims to curb avoidable food waste from our homes. Okay. There's a video. I don't know whether that's it.
There is a video. I've watched the video, but I've not read the food waste intervention plan, so that's maybe a topic for our next episode.
I suppose it only did come out today.
It did. So we're way ahead this week. We're way ahead. We're right in the topical news.
Okay.
And just a little reminder for everybody, we have been harking on about this for quite a long time. The biodegradable landfill ban comes into force on the 1st of January 2026. So we are now less than 3 months away from the ban coming in, and we still have quite a significant tonnage of waste in Scotland that currently has no home. There's not sufficient waste energy capacity, so who knows what's going to happen in the 1st of January, but the clock is rapidly ticking.
Yeah, and talking about recycling, we've got a bit more news about toothpaste. So
this one triggered me, Jane, but I'll let you explain first.
Well, I read it and I thought, that's great, that is. We're going to be recycling toothpaste. So one of the UK's most wished cycled items. So this is something, I think this is a new terminology, isn't it? We've got another new word to add to our dictionary. Is something that people wish these things could be recycled, which is great. So now the toothpaste brands, instead of made up of thin layer of aluminium between plastics, which made it difficult to process, now it's just plastic on its own, high density plastic. It kind of does it when you used to turn the toothpaste and you kind of like squash it all at the end, towards the end. It does make it slightly more difficult to do that, but that's fine. So it's technically 100% recyclable according to RAP, reprocessed into plastic piping, bleach bottles, garden. Do you know what? It's just the bee's knees. So 25 million tubes of toothpaste are sold in the UK each year. So right, okay, so I've got my tube of toothpaste. What do I do with it? Where do I put it? Do I put it in my plastic recycling bin? I don't know. It didn't actually say that. It didn't actually go into that much detail. Any thoughts on that, Alistair?
I think we're probably going to cover that in the rest of the episode in terms of recycling services. There is always a real disconnect between what can, in theory, be recycled versus what the recycling facilities are actually extracting. Most of them are set up to take out, plastic bottles, plastic tubs, and so on. They're currently not set up, I would suggest, to take out toothpaste tubes. So whether they will be in the future or not is so it's great that they've made the changes to make it all plastic and, in theory, recyclable. But the next step is we need to make sure the recycling organisations are actually taking them out.
So also, right, when I've got my plastic stuff, I wash it out, I clean it out. How am I going to clean my toothpaste tube out?
You can wash it out as well, Jane. Blow it up and then wash it out.
Right, I can see that happening. Anyway, what about you? Have you got anything else slightly more grown up?
No, I think that one, when I did see that one coming out, it did sort of trigger me slightly. It was like, the manufacturers making out this huge progress that they're going to be recycled. The reality is they're probably still not going to be recycled. But that's maybe a bit depressing.
The idea is there.
The other one I noticed was Suez put out a report about so we've talked about this before, there's a bit of concern about the energy from waste costs increasing because of this emissions trading scheme, this ETS scheme that's coming in place, that the carbon impact of waste energy or energy from waste needs to be taken into account, and that's possibly going to add on, quite a big fee to councils in particular for incinerating the waste. Now, Suez is really just making the point that there are things councils can do to be a bit more proactive in terms of recycling and waste reduction to reduce that impact, and I think that's some of the things councils in particular should be looking ahead to in terms of, where can they improve their recycling infrastructure to reduce their future costs.
Because one of the things it's saying to reduce your carbon costs, trying to look at, well, it says less commonly collected but carbon intensive streams, so such as waste electricals, which we are collecting anyway, plastics, and the other thing there is disposable nappies, trying to collect those separately and do something with those. Not quite sure what. Can't see you recycling disposable nappies, but anyway.
There is such a thing. There is such a place.
Well, I'm sure there is.
There you go.
Is that our news? Yeah,
I think that was all our news. I was quite weak in the news front. Apart from that, what I said at the start, myself and Jane were going to talk about recycling collections. That's followed on from our waste collections episode we did last week. So if you're not listening to that, give a wee listen. We did go back in time last week. We went back, wee history lesson of waste management. But what we thought this time was looking at the different recycling collections and really what's the difference between what's happening in Scotland, what's planned for England with their simpler recycling that's very much in the news at the moment, and then what's been happening in Wales. So over to you, Jane, for Scotland's code of practice. What are we doing in Scotland?
Right. Well, Scotland's code of practice came out in 2016. It was produced by Zero Waste Scotland.
And cause it was a combination between Scottish Government, Zero Waste Scotland, and COSLA, I believe.
What was it? Oh, yeah, Scottish Government, COSLA, Solace Scotland, and Zero Waste Scotland. Sorry, yes, it was a combination of all of those. And they set it out, March 2016 was when it issued. So it was nearly 10 years ago. So, we were certainly ahead of the game then, 10 years ago. There was 31 out of 32 local authorities signed up to it. So what happens is you signed up to the code of practice and then you got some money, basically, to be able to implement it. And we're not quite sure which one of the 31, which one didn't sign up to it.
I was trying to work it out, Jane. Google and ChatGPT were failing me. They weren't telling me which one it was. So if anybody knows out there, I'm sure we have some listeners that do know which authority. I have my suspicion and I know who it is, but I've actually got a few in the top.
The top 5.
I've got 2 or 3 in mind that may be the one that's not signed up. And by no means did they all sign up in March 2016. It's been a bit of a transition for some of them. Some have only fairly recently signed up.
I think what happened with the problem is that if you hadn't already started, then you were okay. But if you'd already started and bought bins or tubs or containers or whatever, and then the thing came out, then you needed to transition and move away from what you already had in place to what it said in the code of practice. So what it said was we get separate collections for paper and card, plastics, metals and cartons, then a separate one for glass, and then food waste collected separately or commingled with garden waste. Now, I'm just thinking, looking at the top 4, the majority of ones I know don't separately collect glass. It's combined in with the plastic, metals and cartons. So, which doesn't make it, probably more difficult to recycle, but easier for us putting it in the bins. Also encouraged to collect small wee textiles, batteries, and absorbent hygiene products, i.e. nappies. And we were just talking about nappies earlier as well in terms of carbon reduction going into the energy trading scheme. So, that's probably where that's come from. But I have no recollection at all of ever having been asked to collect my absorbent nappies. Not that I have any anymore, but anyway, so that's what those separate collections for.
I think there's some councils are doing batteries, I think.
Okay.
So you're allowed to leave a wee
little
bag of batteries in your bin, and that will get collected separately. I can't remember off the top of my head which councils, but I'm sure there are some.
Yeah, well, that's quite a good idea, isn't it, as well? So it gave guidance on how much you needed, sufficient capacity to households, so what size of bins you should have and what can go in bins, and what happens at the end. So there's lots of good stuff in there, and in particular, it said something about we will make sure that these are consistent. Firstly, every citizen should understand what they can and cannot recycle in a collection service. Fair enough. When citizens understand what can be recycled, no matter where they live, they will understand what container that item should be placed into. Still, as far as I can see, that to me means everybody's got the same colour bins, and that's definitely not the case.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Definitely not the case. And yeah,
do you think we've achieved that one, that every member of the public knows clearly what can go in what bin?
I don't think so, because generally I think it's easy enough, but then you get the specific things like your toothpaste tubes. Where would you put that? What about film? Some places recycle film, some places don't. What about your stuff you've had your bacon in and things like that? What about when you get a plastic biscuit tin? Can you put that in? All these sort of things that aren't run of the mill, things like that. Or, you've got a plastic dustpan and brush, and you've broken the dustpan. Can you put that in your plastic?
Oh, I saw that. You must be reading my mind, Adrian.
Really?
I saw a cracker the other day of it, and I should have taken a photo for the Rubbish Talk TikTok. So it was it was the cardboard and paper collection. So the bin was full. So there's a box of paper and cardboard sitting at the side of the bin, and then stuck out of the cardboard box was a broomstick.
Okay.
I was like, how does putting a broomstick in equate to a cardboard and paper collection? But I suppose the broomstick can be turned into cardboard or paper. It was maybe the householder's logic, but I was impressed with that one.
Okay, fair enough.
I like that one. So one of the interesting ones that popped up the other day on this note was Maurice Golden, the MSP for up north. Actually, I think I should really know where he's from. He was asking a question about whether the extended producer responsibility money could be ring-fenced to help councils achieve their recycling targets and achieve their code of practice. And the response was that actual legislation is UK government legislation, and they weren't actually sure they would be able to ring fence it or not. So
really,
I suppose the money's coming to local authorities. So I think it's up to them to choose whether they want to ring fence it. But I think probably the focus in councils is not to ring fence it because of other requirements. But from a waste management point of view, we should probably be trying to ring fence it.
Well, it's like what we were talking about the other day, wasn't it? Last time we were talking about how much money gets spent from your council tax on waste management, which was about 7p in every pound.
I was trying to work out. I was trying to work out Scotland, England, and Wales, but I couldn't actually find the right figure.
All right, okay.
I failed. My research failed.
Yeah, so you think if there's only 7p in every pound and all this money's coming in, supposedly to help with the waste management, you think, well, actually, I think was it about 50 odd or 60 odd % was spent on social care.
It was 70%, I think it was.
I don't know, it was really high anyway.
So when I was researching this, when you actually look through that household, the code of practice, that household waste charter, there's actually some pretty good stuff in it. And I was just thinking, it's almost coming up to the 10-year anniversary of it being put in place. What would be really good is going out and actually, checking councils, and not so much checking them, but just going through the charter and how much progress have they made, where they're doing really well, and what other areas, like the bit you mentioned earlier on, Jane, about the, encourage the collection of small wee textiles batteries. Can we start making some progress in these areas? I just thought it'd be quite good.
Yeah, perhaps we could ask Zero Waste Scotland to do a study. That might be useful. So where are we now? Zero Waste Scotland estimates 81% of residual waste should not be in the residual bin. That's not good though, is it?
No.
We might have started in 2016, but if we've still got 81% of residual waste, should not be in that bin.
We've got a good bin system.
Yeah.
Bin system, but we appear to have a bit of a disconnect with how it's used, and then the one I keep ranting on about is the only 20% of the public are actually using the food waste collection system. So going back to Zero Waste Scotland's report we talked about earlier, if people use their food waste collection, they actually see how much food they're chucking out, and quite often they will reduce how much waste food they're producing. So we should be really actively encouraging people to use the food waste collection system.
Yeah, and perhaps doing some sort of study about how long it takes for maggots to grow in these bins, because I'm still looking for maggots in mine. I haven't found any yet.
Is that not next week's episode, Jane?
Oh, yeah.
The flying.
Don't tell anybody.
Keep a secret. We'll not say. But listen out. If you want to know all about maggots, next week's episode, what would that be? Episode 79. It'll be all about maggots.
Yeah,
all you ever wanted to know about maggots.
Really interesting, actually. Anyway, moving back on, so we've done Scotland and the fact that started 2016, and we could do with a bit of a review and a bit of a kind of a push on it, really. So England, so they introduced their simple recycling quite recently. I think it's this year, 2015. And what they've done is they've introduced 4 containers for everywhere, the whole of England. Residual, 1 for residual, non-recyclable waste, 1 for food waste mixed with garden waste, 1 for paper and card, and 1 for dry recyclable materials, plastic, metals and glass. Does that sound familiar? Relatively familiar?
Sounds pretty much the same.
So, so what we're going to find out is how well they do. So they're required to recycle it all or collect it all by March 2026, and weekly food waste collection for most homes. And that'll be good because I keep going on about my mum and her lack of food waste collection system. So, I'll be monitoring that.
But that's a big change down south, because we've obviously in Scotland we've had food waste for,
even though not many people use it,
a long time. Whereas for England this is a big change. And it covers both, am I right in thinking, Jane, it covers both households and workplace, so they're trying to get consistency between the workplaces and the household.
Yeah, which makes sense, doesn't it? Because if you do it at home, you should do it at work as well. And I think by March 2027, looking at plastic film collections from businesses.
See, this is the one that gets me. It's like we're struggling to recycle plastic bottles and so on, as it is. And we're now going down of trying to collect and spend lots of money and time and effort putting out plastic film. And I know why we're doing that, to reduce the carbon emissions when we're incinerating waste and so on. But it seems as if it's a bit like the cart before the horse. We need We need the infrastructure that can actually recycle that soft plastic before we start investing in all the infrastructure to collect it.
Yeah, otherwise you're going to collect it and there's nowhere to put it. There's nowhere to take it. There's no way to separate it.
There was a report out actually that just recently I did see that a report, but I've not actually read. There was something like a bit of a trial about collection of soft plastics and different ways of doing it and so on. Because the big concern for the recycling facilities is that the soft plastic can hide the metals in the cans and the plastic bottles and make the waste a lot harder to sort. So it's how do you collect it without affecting your recycling plant infrastructure?
Yeah, that's another bin, isn't it?
There's a whole topic in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it was talking about paper and card. And this is sort of the kind of obvious thing, is it's collected from all other, making sure that it's collected separately so that it doesn't get contaminated by anything else, which, you know, is pretty important when you're talking about paper and card and trying to make sure it gets recycled properly. So yeah, anyway, what else?
So at the moment, in terms of recycling rate across the UK countries, recycling, England is currently 44%, Scotland's 42%, and Wales is 57%. So even although England's not got food waste recycling, it's actually
It's not bad,
it's
is
above,
it?
it's above Scotland. If you add in food waste recycling with a decent public participation, that can easily jump up 20 or 30%, because food waste and residual is probably about 30%.
Yeah.
Potential for big improvement once that comes in. But lots of challenges for England on the back of this simpler recycling, because there's going to be lots of routing changes, a lot of changes to collection cycles, which sometimes will not get the best press. There's a lot of press at the moment about, you know, councils reducing waste collections. They're not reducing waste collections. They're just changing the way how they collect the waste. You see discussions about moving to a 2 or a 3 weekly collection for residual waste. It doesn't mean you're getting nice collections. It just means 1 week you're getting paper and cardboard, next week you're getting metals and plastics, and then the following week you're getting your residual waste. And if you actually use the system properly, then there's no real issue. But I know from talking to some councils that they're struggling to get bins because everybody's after new bins. And then you've also got the thing about the more food waste collected, where's that food waste going to end up in terms of AD plants or in-vessel composting plants? So some challenges ahead, I think.
I tell you what I should have done was buy shares in bin companies at the outset. You could be earning a fortune now. So we've done Scotland, we've done England, now we go on to Wales, who are the star performers, 57% recycling. So how do they do that? We did have a good chat with Andy Rees the other day. So one of the things that they've got is recovery targets. Now they produced their guidance in 2017. So it was a year after we did that in Scotland. And it's guidance made under Section 7 of the Waste Wales Measure 2010 in support of local authority recovery targets. So it was actually actual legal requirements here. So they had their recovery targets for each year. So 2012 to 13 was at 52%, 15 to 16, 58%, 19 to 20, 64%, and 24 to 25, at least 70%. So with the recycling targets mentioned, it's only 57% at the moment, but you know, it's not doing too bad, and better than us anyway, better than Scotland. I was just going to say that I suppose it's exceeding targets and strong progress in reducing waste sent to landfill as well. I mean, that's a big thing, isn't it? And I know Andy Rees had quite a lot to say on those targets and how important those actually introducing the targets had been.
Yeah. So we had a good chat with Andy on episode 75 of Rubbish Talk. So Andy's the head of waste strategy at Welsh Government, and he chatted through these targets, how important it was in terms of getting good quality recycle it for the recycling market. But one of the changes we did chat as we went through, or one of the collection systems that seems to be the main collection system that's used in Wales is this, what they call curbside sort, where the public are requested to put the waste into boxes or containers that are left at the curbside, and then the operators will come along. So if you've got a box out for paper and cardboard, the operator will put the paper and cardboard into that container on the vehicle. But if there is any contamination, if there's a glass bottle or a metal can or whatever there, they'll also sort that into the right area. So certainly they're, I suppose, the probably outlier in the UK that they predominantly use curbside sort, whereas most of the rest of England and Scotland uses separate bins for separate collections. And I suppose the challenge for councils is the more bins you introduce, the more collections you have to do, and the more storage space people have for bins.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to balance getting good quality recyclate by making it really specific to one waste stream. So if I go back down my back lane where we've got a glass collection, you can almost guarantee that every bin that's put out for glass has only got glass in it.
All right.
If you go down the back lane when it's paper and cardboard, you can almost guarantee it's only paper and cardboard in it. But then when you look at some of the mixed waste streams, where it's plastic, metal, potentially bottles or whatever, then it becomes less clear what that material is, and then it becomes more difficult to sort. So it's trying to balance the two things between the collection system and the actual processing costs.
Yeah. I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? And then why are systems underperforming, and is it between the producers, what the producers put on the market, and what we can recycle, and the fact that there's sometimes not very clear guidance on that, like our toothpaste tubes, for instance? Yes, it's great that we can recycle. Where would you put them? And then, there are different things in different councils about what can go in which bin as well. Like you say, I've got in mine paper and card in one bin, and then I've got glass, metals and plastics in another, whereas some places do separate glass collections. So again, it's just making sure we've got consistency, or we know what actually goes in which bin.
I don't think we've actually done enough. I don't think we've done enough to try and work out which system's best. So you were just using the example of the metals, cans and bottles in one bin. That's perfectly possible. Public like it. But then when that goes to a recycling plant, the glass gets broken and then the plastic gets devalued, or the metal gets devalued because it's got glass through it.
Yeah.
So in terms of the overall result, yes, it's maybe easier for the public, but if that's causing you a big reduction in value for your recyclate, and potentially when the market's low for recyclate, you can't actually sell it, then overall it might not be the best way to do it. You may be better with a separate glass collection. But I don't think we've done enough, across the UK to actually look at these systems and say that, this one's working really well because of this, this, and this, or this one actually looks good on paper, but then when you actually start digging into it, it's maybe not performing that well.
It would be good because some places have been collecting film, haven't they? Some authorities have been collecting film as well, because it would be good to find out, what their view on that is. Some authorities don't actually collect glass at all, and they just rely on the bring sites for you to take your glass to. So it's an interesting one. I do think, yes, it would be handy to get a review of what works and what doesn't. Now, we've been doing it for nearly 10 years.
So I suppose what's our summary of these systems then, Jane? So I think Wales seems to be stealing the march in terms of figures, and is that because they set a clear target and said to councils, here's your target, get on with it? England is simpler recycling, lots to change in the next year or so probably that result will not come out. I would say at the moment, Scotland, we have the collection system, but it's just badly underperforming. We've not engaged with the public and maximised it. And I think a bit of work in that area, and I think we could significantly increase the recycling targets or figures.
Yeah, and I think, putting in targets would be beneficial as well, because it would focus the mind from the councils, but it also would I suppose it's always going to be the way. If you're a low-performing authority, why are you low-performing? What was the purpose? Is it because you've got a lot of flatted properties and it's really difficult to collect from there? Or is it because you've got a lot of rural properties and it's really difficult? Again, it's difficult to collect from there, or you've got a reduced service. I don't know. You don't really know until we look at it and find out.
Okay. And apologies to Northern Ireland. We never actually included Northern Ireland. Just because
No.
my research time ran out. So I'm sure some of our listeners can tell us all the good things that's happening in Northern Ireland.
Well, you did have a recycling rate at 50.2%
recycling
Northern
rate.
Ireland.
I did have that
Yeah.
recorded, but I never actually had time to go and see what they're doing in terms of their strategy.
No, well, never mind. Perhaps we can put that on to anybody in Northern Ireland can come back and let us know.
I'm sure we could. And just to finish this bit off, one of the challenges I see with all the recycling thing is this: we seem to have a total disconnect between what producers put onto the marketplace, what the councils say can go in each bin. So quite often the councils specify what the public put in each bin, and then what the actual recycling facilities are actually looking for in terms of their target material. So if you go to an MRF, a material recycling facility, that plant will be set up very specifically to take out certain waste streams. And sometimes what is included in a recycling bin is not necessarily what that plant's looking for in terms of target material. And then what the actual recycling companies want is they want, particularly in the sense of plastic, they want the material to be as clean as possible. If we've been totally honest, we started talking this episode about toothpaste. They probably don't want plastic that's smeared with toothpaste inside it in reality. That would probably be viewed as a fairly low quality material. So it's all about this, trying to get single waste streams, single material types, and get it as clean as possible. So I think that's us. I think that's us covered recycling systems, June.
I think so. I think we've gone through it. We've picked out the stats and the facts. Yep, looking for feedback now.
And then any rants or updates?
No, I never have rants. I'm not a very ranting person, I don't think. No, have you got any?
So I suppose a wee plug for Albion. So we have been nominated for the Investors and People UK Employer of the Year nominee. And I think that was in I can't remember the category of, 2 to 49 staff. So we've been shortlisted for the UK awards. So
Woo!
Are we jolly down to London is on the cards, hopefully.
Very good. Enjoy it. Enjoy that, Alistair.
I need to decide who's coming with me.
I think you should be taking me out.
I need to decide who's coming. And then the other wee plug was I was doing professional interviews for the Chartered Institute of Waste Management last week, and we were interviewing a lady called Samantha Riggs. And Samantha Riggs is a big Rubbish Talk fan.
Samantha, you are just a star.
I was standing behind her talking at the MRW event recently, and she was chatting to somebody else, and she recognised the voice. But by the time she turned around to talk to me and finished our other conversation, I'd disappeared, so she never had the chance to meet me.
Oh, you're just a voice, Alistair. That's the thing.
There you go. She reckoned my voice from this podcast. So
excellent.
So there we go. So my mini rant, it's not a big rant, my mini rant is people who leave stuff outside the back gate. So in the area where I live, there's quite a lot of back lanes, and that's generally where people leave the bin. But quite often people leave all sorts of crap at the back gate. And I don't know if they imagine it just magically disappears, or whether they are arranging a collection, or they're going to eventually put it in the boot in a car and take it to the household waste recycling site. But you go down there sometimes, you think that's actually been sitting there for a good few months.
Nobody's.
It's not just going to magically disappear, honestly.
No, don't have that. We don't have that too much. I suppose we don't have back lanes. It's all on the street front, on the people's front streets. So if you had anything left over, people wouldn't be too chuffed about it. So everything goes back in again.
Yeah, I think it's particularly noticeable in back lanes.
Yeah.
There seem to be, certainly in the past, I think people would have, when we only had one bin or two bins, the bins would have been in the garden. But I think the more bins we've had or been given, the more the bins are left out in the back lane. And then that sort of leads to other stuff being left out in the back lane. So.
Yeah, that's not good. You get a rubbish tip in the back lane.
A mini rant.
Okay, well, that'll do.
That's us, episode 78.
Sorted.
And next week, I'll not give you too many details. If you want to know all about maggots, tune in for episode 79 next week.
Yeah, and don't eat your dinner at the same time.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. See you again next Thursday at 4 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share with friends, and send us your feedback at hello@rubbishtalk.co.uk.